Thanks, Tom, for kicking off our week. My name's Janet Wood. I'm the editor of New Power Report, and I'll be your host today and for the next couple of days as we discuss the energy transition and the results of the Flexibility in Great Britain modelling work launched today. We'll be looking at these results in detail shortly, but first we've got some important speakers who can set the scene for that. Ahead of that, I'll just give you a few pointers about the meeting platform. Live sessions are shown on the On Now tab and the main event homepage. Once a session is finished, you'll be automatically prompted to join the next session on your screen. You can view the full event schedule for the week under the Agenda tab, and a downloadable PDF version of the agenda is also available under the Resources tab. You can leave and rejoin the event at any time using your email address and PIN code, and all sessions will be recorded so you can view them at a later date on the Carbon Trust website. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see tabs. To send in a question to our speakers, click on the Q&A tab and press the blue button to add your question. All questions will be anonymous. You can also upvote questions that have already been asked by clicking the thumbs up next to the question. Moderators are likely to ask panelists the most voted questions. You can also engage with the event through social media. Under the Social tab, you'll see all of the tweets using our event hashtag #EnergyTransitionWeek. We really encourage you to get involved in this online discussion, and please do tag @the Carbon Trust so we can see it. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see 3 blue buttons. The Flexibility in GB button will take you to our recently launched project website where you can find out all the Flexibility in Great Britain report. The About the Carbon Trust button will take you to the Carbon Trust website, and click Contact Us if you'd like to get in touch. I hope all that data helps you participate in the session. But now I'd like to introduce Dan Hamza from Goodacre. He's currently supporting the COP26 High-Level Champions Stream, the Energy Transition Council, and the COP26 Presidency Unit. He's spent 25 years providing climate solutions to governments, philanthropic foundations, international organisations, and businesses. Dan's asking, what does net zero mean for energy flexibility? Over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you to the Carbon Trust for the invitation, and hello to everybody who has tuned in today. It's great to be invited into this topic. It's such an exciting topic, and it's one that comes up frequently in the various roles that I have that Janet just mentioned in relation to COP26, the Energy Transition Council, and the Race to Zero. So there's 3 messages that I wanted to share with all of you today. The first is that the race to zero is well and truly on. The second is that we still need a much more rapid and radical transformation of the energy world. And the third is to highlight some of the frontiers in politics and technology and in ambition that will help drive the rapid and radical transformation that we need. So let's start with an update on the race to zero. If you haven't noticed the net zero zeitgeist, then, well, where have you been? You should have noticed it. So this will be a steep learning curve, but I'm pretty sure that you have noticed the net zero zeitgeist. We now have over 100 countries, including all of the G7 countries that have committed to net zero, and there are over 3,000 non-party stakeholders. That's technical jargon for businesses, banks, cities, states, and regions that have pledged their commitments to net zero as part of the race to zero. And I think it's fair to say that these countries and these other actors present a really quite huge weight of commitment behind this concept of net zero. And I think it's fair to say that we now have reached a tipping point in support for net zero. The conversations have moved from, do we believe in climate change? Do we not believe in climate change? Should we do something about it? Should we not do something about it? Is it 80%? Is it 70%? It's now we need maximum ambition, and the weight of support behind that is truly quite staggering. And this is a North Star. These commitments are being made sometimes in legislation. For example, in the United Kingdom, these commitments are being turned into corporate policies. These commitments are being turned into investment strategies. And this North Star is guiding a lot of activity and a lot of money. It is, however, also been criticised quite recently for being a little bit too 30,000 feet, and I actually think that criticism is healthy. It's a debate that needs to happen. There's criticism that net zero is too distant in time to matter. There's criticism that it's too net to drive change, and there's criticism that it's short of specifics to be sufficiently meaningful. But net zero is becoming real zero, and it's becoming real zero not just for Greta Thunberg, but it's becoming real zero in many other ways. That the Race to Zero team very recently published some additional guidance to try and enhance the robustness of net zero, particularly in relation to credits, in relation to sinks, and in relation to time zones. And countries are adding greater levels of specificity to their net zero commitments, whether that's temporally. For example, the United States, the Biden summit recently announced a 50% commitment by 2030. The United Kingdom has announced a 78% reduction by 2035. So we're seeing a temporal shift from 2050. It's coming further forward within the decade. We're also seeing greater sectoral specificity being added to these net zero commitments. You're probably all picking up what's happening in the transition from the internal combustion engine through to electric vehicles, where commitments are being made to phase out the internal combustion engine from, well, I actually lose track of these. It was 2035. I think I've seen 2030. I think I've even seen 2025 coming through from various different countries and cities as well. So specificity there about particular sectors in electric vehicles. You're also seeing that in the energy sector with commitments to 100% renewable energy. And there are now, I think, over 300 of the world's largest businesses that have committed to RE100. That's the largest corporate club for renewable energy. And there are about 125 of the world's largest businesses that have committed to RE100 sister campaign, EP100, which is a commitment to double energy productivity. So these net zero targets are becoming more specific. They are becoming real. So that's my first message, is that the race to zero is well and truly on. The true litmus test for that as well, I think, is I should just say, is the mum test. The strong evidence is not just in the companies I just mentioned, but after 25 years of working on climate change, I can now talk to my mum about net zero. She actually knows what I'm talking about. So we really do genuinely know this is happening. Second message, then. My second message is the need for a more radical and rapid transformation of the energy system. That's actually not a very radical thing to say. It's actually I think it's kind of obvious thing to say. But actually, it's typically defined in terms of energy supply, and efforts to tackle climate change do tend to overshadow energy supply. Efforts tend to overshadow those on energy demand, and so I think that's where the radical and rapid shift is much more important and is overlooked. We need to be thinking about energy demand much more than we have been so far, which is why this conference, this focus on energy flexibility, and this report that's come out today is so important. And I want to share with you a case study that really made me stop and think about the need to be looking through both ends of the telescope, I like to say, energy supply and energy demand. And that case study is about solar, and it's about cooling. In 2017, there were 94 gigawatts of new solar capacity added in the world. And in that year, that was a record. In 2017, in the same year, there was 100 gigawatts of new energy demand just from the sale of air conditioners. So yeah, that's right. Basically, new demand for air conditioners ate up all of the new solar capacity that was provided in the world. So that just, to me, speaks to the challenge that we really can't just be thinking about scaling up energy supply, as important as that intervention is. We have to be thinking about demand as well. Otherwise, we will be running forwards just to move backwards in this race to zero, and that's not going to get us to where we need to be. So the answer is we need to better manage energy demand. This approach combining the two together is something that's been recognised in the work of the COP26 high-level champions Race to Zero. If you go online, you will see various different pathways have been written. There's a lot of homework there that you can do. If you look at the energy pathway, you'll see that energy supply and demand are both recognised, the role of storage and flexibility. If you look in the human settlements pathway, the cooling pathway, you will see the major focus on energy efficiency and also smarter design. So thinking like this is critical, and it unleashes a whole new set of solutions and just a whole new way of thinking. Actually, most people don't want energy, they want the services that energy provides, whether that's thermal comfort or whether that's lighting and others. So when we think about energy services, it unlocks a new way of thinking about how we can provide what humans need. And there are all sorts of solutions that are coming to the fore through automation and digitization, demand response and thermal storage and others. And as well as our trusted friend energy efficiency, which has delivered a huge benefit to the world so far and will continue to do so. And that efficiency is needed at the level of the individual appliance, whether that's an air conditioner, and it's needed at the level of equipment more generally, whether that's HVAC systems or electric motors. And the benefits are still absolutely huge. And did some work recently with the Economist Intelligence Unit to quantify the contribution of more efficient cooling to reducing the supply side costs of getting to net zero. And the Economist found that more efficient air conditioners could shave, I think it was $0.9 trillion off of energy supply costs by 2030, and that didn't even include transmission and distribution. That's a hefty saving, something that we should be attempting to realize. But actually, we should be thinking about efficiency at the level of the system as well. So if we continue that example, then it's not just about the individual appliance, the air conditioner. It's thinking about cooling in buildings. And actually, when one quantifies the contribution of efficiency in buildings, taking a more sort of systems level approach, then the savings by 2030 were 3.5 trillion, so four times as much as thinking at that individual level. So we've got to be thinking in terms of systems and the contribution that they can make to reducing the cost of achieving net zero, which is why I congratulate the Carbon Trust today. Well done, team. Manu, I know you've been working on it, and various others as well, to ask that question of flexibility. What's the contribution of flexibility to reducing the cost of achieving net zero? And you'll hear more about that report later on today. And I think it's online. You can go online and do some more of your homework to read up. I would say a sort of a message to the audience today is, now you've quantified that value, which is great. You need to really focus on scaling up the mechanisms that realize the value that's just been quantified. And I see there's various different discussion topics that have been scheduled today to do just that. So my third and final point is about frontiers. I mentioned political frontiers, technology frontiers, frontiers of ambition. I'll try and wrap this up quickly while I look at the clock. Okay, political frontiers. Up until now, the politics of climate change, internationally in particular, have been overwhelmingly characterized by collaboration. And that's at the heart of the Paris Agreement, and it's certainly the ethos of the international climate movement. And conflict in international climate change has typically been about those that don't believe in climate change and those that do believe in climate change. My hypothesis, however, and something that I think you should just watch, is that collaboration and competition are not actually always in competition with each other, and that we will see a new international climate politics of competition that can also deliver positive climate outcomes. And the Race to Zero will have a lane that's dedicated to the race for climate markets, and I actually think that lane is going to become the busiest lane of all. And if you like, we could see this as an arms race for clean tech. I don't like to use military analogies, but that is a sense of where some of the progress will come from. And you already see this in the politics, the geopolitics between China and the United States. So there will be a new climate politics of competition that will help to drive us where we're getting to. If you read the work of Tom Hale from Oxford, you'll also be picking up about the new climate politics of existentialism. And as we see more of the floods and the droughts and the climate impacts becoming real, countries will understand that they have to take interest for their own security and their prosperity, and that sense of self-interest will also drive things through. So there are some new frontiers of politics here, which will help to speed and scale the transformation we're looking for. That doesn't mean we don't need more collaboration. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not encouraging that we should all be competing with each other. We need more collaboration, but just don't always see competition in such a negative light as it has been previously. Secondly, the other frontier is on technology. There's lots of people in the audience today, I'm sure, technology whiz kids. We will, of course, see much more in terms of technology frontiers. You may have picked up what John Kerry said quite recently, that he thinks that 50% of the technology we need is not yet developed. I'm not so sure actually about that. I'm slightly more in Craig Bennett, well-known UK environmentalist. I'm slightly more in his camp, that we just need the existing technologies to be a lot better. And I like the quote from the International Energy Agency that solar power is now the cheapest electricity in history. It's quite a phenomenal achievement, and I actually think we'll achieve a lot more by really digging into some of what's already on the table and working on the costs and making sure that's more evenly distributed. It does look like storage is hot on the heels of solar. Whenever I open my daily news feed, whether it's Carbon Brief or the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit or the other plethora of news that comes through, then there's another story about batteries getting cheaper and batteries getting better. So it looks like the opportunities are rising rapidly. I'm sure you'll discuss these kind of innovation S-curves in the days ahead. So finally then, just a word about frontiers of ambition. And whilst I'm an optimist, I'm also a little bit skeptical about the capability, the capacity of every part of the world to move as quickly as we want to. And some of that's about a lack of governance in those countries, and they have more pressing needs, unfortunately. Some of it's about lagging vested interest and corruption. Luckily, I think that the sort of clean tech market capitalism will cannibalize some of those barriers, but there will still be a need for leaders to compensate for the inability or the unwillingness of some parts of the world to move as quickly as we need to do. And I don't mean compensate through sort of wealth transfer. I mean compensate by going even further. And there are concepts that are emerging to go even further than net zero and even further from real zero. And some of you may have picked up on the climate positive movement. And that's the idea that not only do you do no harm to the climate, but actually you undertake activities that can regenerate the climate. Is this futuristic? Is this wishful thinking? No, there are already companies that have climate positive policies. Have a look at what IKEA are doing. North Face have got some products. Microsoft as well have been making some incredibly bold commitments in terms of really looking back historically over all of their emissions, not just what they're going to do going forward. So I will wager that more companies will make these commitments going forward, and I will wager that even some countries may rise to that level of climate ambition. You probably know the famous quote by the American author William Gibson that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. So I will just say to all of you today and in your work beyond, please keep up this focus on energy flexibility and the transition to net zero, and try and make sure that we can distribute this future across the UK and beyond as quickly as possible. Thank you once again for the invitation, and enjoy the rest of your discussions.